What do you mean you didn't get the money? Good afternoon, everyone. We have a story today about wire fraud, and it is a problem in the closing process. I will say that. For those of you who don't know me, my name is John Schenk. I'm the founder and managing broker of Deerwood Realty here in St. Louis, Missouri. We're a small boutique brokerage, and we concentrate mainly on residential and light commercial sales. Our podcast, Deerwood Realty and Friends, is available iTunes, Deezer, Stitcher, things of that nature. And we also do the video recording and post those to YouTube. If real estate stuff, if neighbor stuff, if HOA stuff, development stuff, those types of things are interesting to you, go ahead and click the subscribe button. It costs you nothing, and it helps me a ton. Or you could just go to the channel, Deerwood Realty STL on YouTube. Today we have a story that I've been hearing about for years. It's just kind of a redo of a story, and this is blame it on COVID, but this problem has existed for a long time, and I actually feel like I'm kind of at fault in a way because I'm irritated with the title company oftentimes with some of their policies. And let me just squirt this way. I think that you should be able to buy a house or sell a house online without going to the title company. They should be able to produce the docs, and you should be able to sign them, and it should be done. That being said, what I believe and what is the best are probably two different things. And the reason is 100% because of wire fraud. So in a real estate transaction, you have oftentimes a lot of money. So on the seller side, they're expecting to receive a large check. On the buyer side, you're going to have the lender, and then you're going to have the buyer with their down payment. And so each of these spaces is ripe for fraud, is a great space for fraud. And as technologies move forward, we seem to have situations like this where we'll get more fraud in a situation rather than less fraud, or we sacrifice the fraud for efficiency, which is not good. And so I started hearing about this, like I said, a couple of years ago, and I was disappointed by some of the policies that the title company put in place at the time here in St. Louis, but I understand them, and I would never want something like this to happen to one of my buyers or sellers. And so here's the article. The headline of the article is, "I almost lost $50,000 to a real estate scam, and I'm one of the lucky ones." And so the author is the one that wrote this, but they start off with a story about a lady who was getting ready to buy her first house, and she got an email from her attorney's paralegal, and it said that she needed to wire her down payment and closing costs for $22,890. And so she wired the funds, and it turns out that the funds never got to the lawyer. And you say, well, how did that happen? Well, the email was fake. And I don't know if you've seen these emails, but they are so close to being perfect. I mean, especially in the case of the title company, you've probably never worked with this title company before, so you really wouldn't even know what to look for in an email. So anyway, she's sad, and then it says, stories aren't uncommon. Real estate wire fraud has been a problem for years and has only worsened during the pandemic. Well, it's terrible. So if it's gotten worse, it's kind of hard to believe. One of the things in the article, it says, in a survey of title agents, it says that a third of all 2020 real estate transactions included some sort of wire fraud attempt, and 76% of the agents said that fraud attempts either increased or held steady from the year prior. And so this is a real problem. It's bad. So, and then it goes over, the article goes over how the fraud happens. But basically, you get an email that looks totally legit from either the title company, the buyer, the seller, the lender. Somebody says, send me the money. And you're so busy trying to close on the property that you end up sending money to somebody that isn't even in the transaction. So that's not good. The article goes on to say that COVID opened more doors for scammers. We're going to have an article a little bit later where a lady lost a piece of property due to COVID, in the sense that people were able to go to the title company and close without her knowing, because it was an online transaction. So this particular author said that she got an email from her agent, her title agent, and it said that you need to have the cash to close in order to avoid a delay. And she noticed that the number was correct, the closing cash to close number. The address and names were right. The email signature was spot on. And she only noticed that the sender's email was one character off and had a different host domain. So, this is an issue. It has ways to protect yourself from wire fraud. And I'm going to go over some of the ways that I think will work. And that's about it. Let's go over some of the things that I had. So one of the things I thought was interesting is, do you know what a wet signature is? I say that at the title company, I get kind of disgusted. I don't really want a wet signature, but a wet signature is just simply just a signature that you do with a pen. So not an e-signature. And then the title company prefers to see you in person for a closing, and they ask for your ID when you arrive. And do you know why that is? Well, I'm sure most of you figure out, if they can match your ID with you, that's a good chance that you're the person that's supposed to be there for the closing. But it seems like an annoyance. Like, why are they copying my ID? Why are they asking for this information? They know who I am. They know what I'm doing. And that they're just doing it to protect themselves and to protect you. The size of the fraud at $1.8 trillion estimated, that's a lot of money. And they say that there's only between 12 and 15% of the cases are reported, which I think that's to the FBI. It's hard for me to believe that, 80%, 85% of the people that are being frauded out of hundreds of thousands of dollars at times are not reporting it. And then the other thing in the article says, COVID has heightened this situation. But this has been an issue since before COVID, many years before that. And so it's good of the article to use COVID as, it's worse, but it's just bad now. I mean, it's been bad. And then it says that a survey the same survey said that a third of all real estate transactions in 2020 included some sort of wire fraud attempt. So it's significant. And so what are the things that I recommend to try and mitigate this issue? Well, one, always attend the closing in person. I know it's a hassle. When you're a seller and say you're leaving before the closing, leaving town, a lot of times if the paperwork is done on time here in St. Louis, at least you can pre-sign, and then you just have to wait for the check to hit your account. Two, verify you give everybody the right information. So if you're expecting to get money on the seller side, then make sure that you've got your bank wire information correct. And usually the title company will call to confirm the information. So that's a way to avoid it. And then as a buyer, you're in this transaction. You're going to get a closing statement before the closing, and you're also going to want to work with a lender that keeps up on the file and says, here's what you need for closing. Here's what you need to do. And, be on top of it. You want a lender that's on top of that. You don't want that farmed out to like the fourth assistant on the team. And then another good way to avoid it on the buyer side is to pay by cashier's check. And paying by cashier's check is a hassle at closing. So let's say you have the closing, you're the buyer, and your closing is scheduled at like 10 in the morning. You need to get to the bank either the day before or that day to get the cashier's check. I have had situations where I go to closing and the check isn't signed by the bank, so they have to go back and get it signed. And that's a hassle. But it prevents this ultimate hassle, and that is, having a down payment sent somewhere and never getting it back, which is terrible. So this is something that I just want you to be aware of. When the title company is asking you for all these pieces of information, all these pieces of ID, and maybe their emails will be secured. They have like a login before you open the emails. They're doing that for your protection. And I know it's a hassle, but no one's really figured out a way to kind of mitigate this explosion of fraud. It's relatively new. The idea that you can take an email and make it almost perfect, I mean, that's impressive. So this is just something that I wanted you to keep an eye out for and to remember when you go to your own closing. If you have any stories about your own fraud, if you have any stories about a real estate deal that went poorly and you think it's because of your agent, or if you have a story where you thought that something in the transaction didn't work out, you should probably give me a call, 314-274-3964, and leave me a voicemail, or write me an email at media@deerwoodrealtystl.com. These are the stories that I like. I want to build a community where we can talk about these things and not be scared that I'm trying to push some sort of agenda or something like that. I really want to help. I want you to be aware of these kinds of things. And I just want you, to know that these things are out there. So, anyway, give me a call, leave me a voicemail, send me an email, and just keep watching. I got up to 25 subscribers today. Thank you very much. On our way to 50, and I'll catch you on the next one.